Pô, aí deu aquela cutucada mesmo, falou com o Globo e tal, falou, pô, agora o cara tá jogando praticamente direto pra mim, né, velho?
If he hits you, you're going down. So I think he just needs to go out there and let it go a little bit more.
We saw Pereira take a lot of risks in that rematch with Israel Adesanya, and he got flatline KO'd.
Não, beleza, a gente, não, mas quando a gente se encontrar, a gente conversa legal, velho. Entendeu?
Beleza.
The tension between Alex Pereira and Renato Moicano has fans buzzing, with many now speculating whether this war of words could spill into the octagon. Meanwhile, Bedtime MMA sparked some controversy of its own by calling out the UFC for its lack of promotion ahead of UFC 320.
This weekend we got a badass fight card. There's no promotion in the build-up to UFC 320. No one's talking about Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev 2. No one's talking about Marab versus Corey Sandhagen. There's gonna be zero build-up for JDM versus Islam, despite how massive that fight is.
In particular, Bedtime questioned why the organization has not been actively pushing the narrative around the Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev rematch, pointing out that hardly anyone seems to be talking about one of the card's biggest fights.
Hype up these fights. Where's the Big Ank Alex Pereira promotion? That shit is literally 2 weeks away, not even. And there's zero fucking posting about it, zero actual promotion, nothing. It is just, let's just post a IG stare down of Dominic Reyes, Carlos Olberg with 30 likes. That to me is no effort. The UFC doesn't give a whether it's at a great main event, whether it's a main event, whether the undercard is amazing, whether the undercard is terrible. The promotion is all the same. The fight nights, they're starting to just become the same formula of like.
On the other hand, Magomed Ankalaev has been spotted going through intense drill work focused on sharpening his kicking arsenal while building the stamina needed to push through a 5-round fight. The Russian light heavyweight champion appears locked in on fine-tuning his striking weapons to match his trademark endurance. According to the debate, MMA analyst Lucas Tracy weighed in on the ongoing narrative that Alex Pereira may not have taken his first clash with Magomed Ankalaev seriously. Tracy pushed back on that idea, stressing that the bout itself told a different story. According to him, Pereira showed up ready and the fight turned out to be a razor-close competitive contest rather than a case of under-preparation.
So Alex Pereira did not take his first fight with Magomed Ankalaev seriously. At least that is the biggest narrative surrounding this rematch as we approach UFC 320. Pereira, because he was so busy traveling the world, doing meet and greets, going to various events, he could not have had an ideal training camp, and that's why he looked so flat in the octagon. That's why he got outstruck by a Dagestani wrestler in Magomed Ankalaev. At least that is the narrative that is starting to be talked about a lot. And let me just get this out of the way. The first fight, it was close. It was competitive.
Furthermore, Lucas Tracy doubled down on his take, admitting he was surprised by what went down inside the octagon. He pointed out that Magomed Ankalaev, a Russian fighter who hadn't exactly been known for extraordinary performances, managed to turn the bout into a chess match. What shocked Tracy most was seeing Alex Pereira, usually a highlight reel striker, reduced to a point-for-point battle on the feet with no big moments breaking through.
But you cannot deny that was a surprise to see a Dagestani wrestler. I know Magomed isn't really a wrestler, but someone with Magomed's background who, for the majority of his career, did not have super impressive performances. It was kind of shocking to see Alex Pereira be rendered into a, bit of a point tit for tat, no big moments guy on the feet throughout the entire fight.
Interestingly, Michael Bisping broke down the matchup from a stylistic standpoint, saying Alex Pereira is going to have his hands full in this fight. Bisping predicted that Pereira would bite down on his mouthpiece, press forward, and take his chances in the striking exchanges by becoming the aggressor.
Of course, they're both big guys, they're both strikers, and of course Alex Pereira is going to be busier in this one. Simple as that. He's going to bite fight down on his mouthpiece. He's got to go forward. He's got to take chances. He's got to be the aggressor. Now, of course, he was worried about the takedown threat. So what you do in those situations is that you tend to back up against the octagon because you can defend takedowns much easier against the fence. When you get pushed up against the fence, you start playing this whole game with underhooks and whizzers and things like that. It's a lot easier to defend the takedown. If you're in the middle of the octagon and somebody shoots at you and you get taken down, you got no fence to lean on.
However, coach John Wood stated that Alex Pereira did not take the first fight with Magomed Ankalaev as seriously as he should have. Wood pointed out that Pereira travels a lot and often shows up at various combat sports events, noting that during the first camp, Pereira seemed to be everywhere instead of fully locked in on the task at hand.
I don't know that Pereira took it that serious for the first one. I'm not sure. I wasn't involved in the camp. I don't know.
Seems to be consensus.
But I'll tell you this. I travel a lot, and I'm at almost every event all over the world, not just UFC, but small shows, big shows, little shows, you know, everything. And I swear to you, when he was in that camp, I saw that dude at every one of those shows. Like, he was at Karate Combat, he's in Australia, he's here, he's there, he's that, you know. And so for me, I was just like, man, like, how are you preparing for a fight, you know, of that magnitude? Like, while you're away for a week, while you're away where you're this, I would see him training in the training rooms, you know.
In addition, John Wood stated that if Alex Pereira goes into the rematch with full confidence and executes his game plan effectively, he can win the rematch.
Where I think that if you have a Pereira that goes out there and feels confident, is just throwing and looking to hurt you and looking to knock you out, there's a good chance that happens. I mean, the man barely threw any weapons and threw any offense at him. And so I think that, like, if he goes out there and fights his fight, there's always a good chance that guy has what we call the proverbial death touch. Like, if he hits you, you're going down.
In response, Lucas Tracy responded to coach John Wood's comments by cautioning that if Alex Pereira turns into the aggressor and starts taking unnecessary risks, it could backfire. Tracy suggested that such an approach would play right into Magomed Ankalaev's strengths and leave Pereira vulnerable in the rematch.
That's what a lot of people are saying. Pereira has to take more risks. Even if that's more dangerous against someone that's faster, he's got to take more risks. And with more risks, of course, you know, he can get knocked out. Even though Magomed doesn't really finish that many people, that's what can happen. We saw Pereira take a lot of risks in that rematch with Israel Adesanya, and he got flatline KO'd.
Despite being locked in, Alex Pereira is still keeping things light despite the high stakes of his rematch. He left room for some entertainment by pranking Renato Moicano on a call, pretending to confront him over how he handled an interview with Pereira's coach.
Porra, você não viu lá não? Um monte de coisa, viu um monte de coisinha e tal, beleza. Eu não falei nada. Chegou na. Porra, deu aquela, porra, aquela cutucada mesmo, falou com o Globo e tal. Falou, pô, agora o cara quer. Tá jogando praticamente direto pra mim, né, velho?
Bom, beleza, você tem sua opinião. Eu não perguntei nada pra constranger nem você nem o Glover não, mas...
Não, beleza, a gente vai... Não, mas quando a gente se encontrar, a gente conversa legal, velho. Entendeu?
Beleza.
Mas é isso, eu liguei mesmo só pra deixar tudo claro, entendeu? Que eu não gosto dessas paradas não, velho, entendeu? O pouco que as pessoas me conhecem, já sabem como que eu sou, por isso que você vê as pessoas não falando de mim, entendeu? São poucas, entendeu? Quando as pessoas querem falar de mim é porque quer arrumar treta, entendeu?
The playful moment showed that while Pereira is focused on the fight, he has not lost his sense of humor.
Tá bom, beleza.
Beleza aí. Ô, tô zoando, pô. Tô com o Glover aqui, velho. Tô contigo aqui, velho. Porra, velho. Caralho, velho. Já tá aqui.
Aí, Moicano!
Aí tu quer me fuder no domingo.
Aí, Moicano!
Pneu furado, velho.
Aí, Moicano, já cheguei pegando, falei assim, hoje eu vou pegar. O Moicano falou que eu vou pegar.
É, porra, velho. Caralho, velho. Tô aqui, porra, o Glover, porra, tá lá, ele chega na posição, aí ele vai lá e solta, né, pra não dar aquela constrangida. Agora não, velho. Porra, tá apertando e, pô, tem que bater. Se não bater, apaga, porra. Você quis me fuder agora, porra.
Pô, aí tu me fudeu, velho.
Não.
Vai me passar um medo desse no domingo, é triste.
Não.
Moreover, it was both entertaining and inspiring to see Moicano handle the initial confrontation with such composure. When he realized it was just a prank, Moicano stayed calm, laughed it off, and genuinely enjoyed the moment, showing his maturity and good spirit in the exchange with Alex Pereira.
É, a gente falou alguma coisinha ali, cumprimentou, mas uma hora a gente fala uma coisa junto aí, uma entrevista, legal.
Bom, deixa eu te falar. Deixa eu te falar, eu gostaria de treinar aí com vocês um tempo, entendeu? Pra aprender.
Pô,
Isso eu
legal.
gostaria de fazer, entendeu? O dia que vocês, fora de camp e tal, se eu puder aí, eu quero aprender com vocês.
Cara, seja bem-vindo, velho.
É, Moicano, depois que eu falei treinar uma vez por dia, você tá querendo vir, né?
Eu tô mesmo, velho. 2 vezes eu não quero não. Assim.
Aí você fala assim, pô,
porra.
ô Globo, então o segredo tá treinar menos. Porra, velho.
Ele falou isso.
However, MMA journalist James Lynch offered a blunt assessment of Pereira's path to victory in the rematch. According to Lynch, the Brazilian's best and perhaps only chance is to find the knockout. He explained that over 5 rounds, Ankalaev tends to stay a little fresher and has the defensive tools to avoid a fight-ending shot. Lynch cautioned that if the bout once again goes to the scorecards, it will be difficult to take the belt off Ankalaev.
I may be wrong about this. I'm just going to say it. I think Pereira basically has to knock out Magomed Ankalaev to win this fight for the simple fact that I think that Ankalaev over a 5-round fight, I think he's a little bit fresher. I don't think he's going to slow down by any means. And he's also got pretty good striking defense. So I don't think, I think if it goes to the scorecards again, I think with Ankalaev's, tool belt, so to speak, with him having a little bit more in the weapons department, I think that would favor him in if this fight goes the distance. So, and not to mention, Ankalaev's the champ. He already won. I could see the judges favoring that as well. So I have a hard time seeing Pereira winning a decision here. I think Pereira would have to knock him out, and easier said than done because Magomed Ankalaev never been knocked out, I should say, in his career.
At the same time, Lynch also raised the question of age creeping up on Alex Pereira. At 38, Lynch suggested that while injuries may have played a role in Pereira not getting the nod in his first fight with Ankalaev, there is also a legitimate argument that decline could be setting in. He noted that it's something worth watching closely as even small dips in speed, reflexes, or recovery can make all the difference at the elite level.
We could also make the argument, too, that, yes, Pereira could have been compromised going into this fight, but how do you explain the Khalil Roundtree fight? That was a fight where he was heavily favored to win. He was losing some of those rounds, and it was only him getting the finish late in the fight that he was able to, get the win over Khalil Roundtree. There could be a possibility of a decline on Alex Pereira. He's 38 years old now. That's something to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at him. Is there, at some point, age does catch up to everyone. Are we seeing a bit of a decline with Pereira? Again, maybe he did have the illness and the injury, and that's the reason he didn't win the last fight, but I think there's also an argument for a possible decline there as well, too. The big thing, though, for me, this really has more to do with Ankalaev. He has very little weaknesses.
Furthermore, coach John Wood weighed in on Pereira's championship pedigree, emphasizing that Poten is a champ for a reason. He explained that Pereira's brilliance lies in how quickly he adapts, highlighting his ability to make adjustments mid-fight. Wood pointed to the bout with Khalil Roundtree as a prime example, noting how Pereira was able to counter Roundtree's own counters, a testament to his high fight IQ and striking mastery.
Pereira's a champ for a reason, though. He's just so good at what he does and makes adjustments that he was able to kind of counter some of our counters and keep it up. And that's a guy that you can only get hit by for so long before it ends up.
He took some shots too. What was your guys' game plan to fight somebody like Pereira? Because it's stand-up versus stand-up at this point, right?
In addition, Coach Wood broke down Pereira's striking style in detail. He admitted Pereira's stand-up isn't the prettiest, with his hands often low and his stance unorthodox, but explained that it's all by design, meant to lure the opponent, and according to the coach, Pereira uses that ugly stance to bait opponents into stepping forward, making them believe he's open to be hit when, in reality, he is sending traps and controlling the exchanges.
Because if we had to fight him again...
Keep some of the sauce.
The thing is Pereira, the big thing with him is if you look at his stand-up, it's not pretty. And I think, it's like his hands are down, he's baiting you in to get to his, to his head, but it's all setups. He does ugly very well. And he does ugly to draw you in and make you pay. So a lot of it was to not bite on that and to get different timing and rhythms and just realize that when you're standing in front of him and it looks like he's open to hit him,
but it's not.
There's probably a setup there. The guy's a world champ. It's a trap. It's a trap. So trying to work around those traps and trying to be patient.
Meanwhile, Sean Strickland gave his take on the rematch and believes Alex Pereira has a strong chance to come out on top. Strickland pointed out that Pereira always pushes hard, even as he moves up and down through different weight classes, which keeps him active and sharp.
Ankalaev is just so fucking good. I think a couple things. I think Alex has a great chance of beating him in the rematch. I think Alex goes too hard. I mean, how many title defenses did he have? Going up and down weight classes. Where Ankalaev rides the bench for a certain amount of time. Being that active and not only that, being a superstar. Like, no one knows who the fuck Ankalaev is. Ankalaev walks down the street, no one knows who the fuck that guy is. Alex is a superstar. He can't leave his house without someone saying, "Oh shit, there's Alex, should we take a picture?" Like, it kind of takes a toll on the mind.
Additionally, Strickland also remarked that Magomed Ankalaev is not a particularly popular fighter, noting that even after becoming UFC champion, he has yet to gain widespread recognition. He added that if Alex Pereira takes a step back, clears his head and avoids distractions like constant travel, he will give himself a strong shot at defeating Ankalaev in the rematch.
Where, you know, you take Ankalaev, who just lives in a fucking cave somewhere. I don't even know where the fuck that guy's from, but dude, like, you know, he probably lives in a fucking cave somewhere and just, like, he doesn't have to deal with the same pressures of being famous as you do in the U.S. So I think Alex, if he just takes a step back, clears his brain, comes in fresh, you know, stop traveling all over the fucking world, I think he has a legitimate shot of beating him.
Reinforcing that, James Lynch pointed out that Ankalaev proved a lot by standing toe-to-toe with Pereira in their first encounter. He stressed that Ankalaev's striking defense is still sitting above 50%, showing just how hard he is to hit clean. Lynch argued that when you factor in that defensive edge, Ankalaev's durability and his ability to hang with Pereira on the feet, the rematch leans in the Russian's favor.
The fact that he stood and traded with Alex Pereira, a guy who's extremely dangerous, means that his stand-up's quite good. And again, if you look at the striking defense on his end with Ankalaev, you know, it's still over 50%. It's almost 60% his striking defense. So he's tough to hit. So I think with all those things factored in, I think Ankalaev wins. Like, I don't know what Pereira's done over the last couple of months that's going to make him win. Like, I think Pereira and his team, and I think even the UFC is kind of like, well, maybe he was compromised going into the first fight and he can get it done. And it could very well happen in this spot. Maybe that is what's going to happen, but I just haven't seen many weaknesses for Magomed Ankalaev, so there's no way I could pick against him here. Not to mention, we just had a fight earlier this year where Ankalaev looked great and got the win, so I'm going to go with Magomed Ankalaev by decision. So,
however, coach John Wood praised Alex Pereira's power by stating that when Pereira lands clean, the impact is enough to shift and rattle the brain. Wood emphasized that this level of knockout force is what makes Pereira one of the most dangerous strikers in the sport and a constant threat to any opponent standing across from him.
Crazy fight to be in the corner of. It was awesome, you know, and like I said, I thought Khalil did a great job, and I think that if we get that one back, if he gets the title back and we get that shot, that we'll definitely, I think it's like
his heart showed a lot, especially when he was getting battered and he was up against the cage and he was still
so game.
I was losing my mind. You know?
No, there ain't no quitting that guy. You know, there is no quitting that guy. There is no bitching that guy. Like, he is down to throw.
Looking ahead, MMA Guru speculated on a blockbuster scenario, stating that if Alex Pereira manages to beat Magomed Ankalaev and Tom Aspinall gets past Cyril Gane, the UFC could line up Pereira versus Aspinall at heavyweight. That would give Pereira a shot at chasing a third belt and writing an unprecedented chapter in MMA history.
I'm leaning towards Ankalaev, to be honest with you guys. I haven't heard of Sharma in a very long time, okay? Now, I'm not saying that Alex Pereira fell off, but I'm worried. I'm very, very worried about this. I'd love for Pereira to win, because you know what Pereira winning means? And this is exactly what Pereira winning means. If Pereira knocks out Ankalaev in this rematch, and Aspinall knocks out Cyril Gane, you know we're getting Tom Aspinall versus Alex Pereira at heavyweight for 3 belts. Now that is going to be absolute cinema.
On the contrary, Alex Pereira clarified that moving to heavyweight has never been on his mind. He explained that the extra size people noticed was simply the result of taking time off, training hard, and focusing on building himself up properly rather than preparing for a move to another division.
Até voltar pro camp, né? Voltei algumas semanas atrás. Então, achei natural mesmo. Tô ganhando massa, tô fazendo os treinos, treinando bem. Eu acho que isso é coisa natural.
No, absolutely none. Just took some break, training hard, training heavy, gain some muscle, gain some size, but all focus for this.
Furthermore, Pereira added that he has always relied on listening to his body, and the only scenario where he would ever move up to heavyweight is if he feels he can no longer cut light heavyweight.
E aí, pô, o meu corpo vem mudando, né? Como eu falei do peso médio pro meio pesado, eu falei, pô, a galera ficava, pô, você vai subir? Eu falava, pô, não sei. Quando meu corpo achar que eu tenho que fazer isso, eu vou fazer, e foi o que eu fiz. E a mesma coisa eu digo agora, né? Se eu começar a ganhar muito peso, eu vou ter que fazer isso.
No, man, same talk as before. Even for middleweight, people ask, like, going light heavyweight. He's used to say, like, I'm gonna listen to my body. when it's becoming harder. So the same way goes here. Eventually, if it gets harder for me to go light heavyweight, I'm gonna go heavyweight.
In the end, Lucas Tracy noted that the silence around Alex Pereira is actually telling, explaining that when you don't hear the usual champ chants for a while, it's a sign that Pereira is grinding behind the scenes and putting in the work out of the spotlight.
I will say that he does seem to be a little bit more locked in this time around. If you guys have been following Alex Pereira, I haven't seen a Chama chant in a long time. Things have been awfully quiet, and when things are quiet, you know the work is getting done.
With UFC 320 on the horizon, all eyes are on Pereira's power and Ankalaev's composure. Talk aside, once the cage door closes, only the fight will decide who leaves with the belt. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe. Comment your thoughts and predictions below, and we'll see you in the next video with more exciting updates.